want to say a big thank you to our today's panelists. We have Victor, Jedi, Purdue, and Monk. Welcome, guys. Today we are going to be talking we're going to be talking about the markets as we always do, but specifically talking about the last few days of price action. I know it's been a bit of a whipsaw, pretty crazy. Lots of guys got stung. We had the Powell pump on Friday. We had the TWAP sell on Saturday. We had the 26 or 23,000 Bitcoin. It was like $2.7 billion market sell on Sunday. So new monthly lows on Monday. So yeah, pretty crazy few days of price action. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about Powell's speech on Friday and whether it means that rate cuts are likely in September. We're going to be talking a little bit about Ethereum, namely the new all-time high, the unimpressive all-time high that it put in a couple of days ago, and kind of where we see Ethereum going over the next few weeks, I guess. 7 days is usually the time frame that we give ourselves in these conversations, but I'm probably a little bit more interested in seeing where Ethereum goes into the remainder of the year. And then we're also just going to be talking about Ghost Month and September seasonality. As I've mentioned a few times on my channel, I don't know whether or to what extent Ghost Month is a psyop, but it's pretty funny if you put the Ghost Month starting onto your charts. Let me actually just show it to you. Someone's saying you call one. Wes, stop. Get into the conversation. Wes, get out of crypto chat. Let me just share my screen super quick. Someone needs to ping Wes. Yeah. So this is the long we took, by the way, the ill-fated long, which I can talk about. I spoke about it on yesterday's stream. But if you look at where Ghost Month started, it literally started at the Pico high here on Saturday. I think actually this was exactly where it started, and since then it's just been straight down like a almost $10,000 drop. So yeah, Honey XBT was right, boys. She called it very vocal about Ghost Month coming. So we will cover that in today's conversation. So with that in mind, I'm going to go to Purdue first. Purdue, how have you been navigating the last few days of price action? Obviously, we had the crazy pump on Friday, the TWAP sell on Saturday, the market sell on Sunday, and new monthly lows now. What are you looking at in the charts, and how are you navigating this price action?
It hasn't been my best last few days, to be honest. Not the best month for me. Have been pretty much struggling with this PA. Wait, let me share my screen. Let me check if everything goes right here. Yeah. August wasn't really the month for me so far. Had some annoying stop outs on A, for example, that ran to TP within the the days after. Also, BTC had a really nice snipe yesterday, and it ran to TP. I got stopped out for $3, but a lot of members caught the move though, so that was nice. So yeah, for me at the moment, I think. Oh wow, this played out perfectly. To be honest, fucking hell. To me, we really need to reclaim 112k for now before I get bullish. We have a lot of confluence there. It's the old all-time high. It's the range old range low over here. So I really want to be this. This has to be like a deviation back to the 112k region, and that would confirm to me that it was a swing failure pattern. Um, Historically, the ghost months have been sold into. I looked it up like over the last few years from 2014 until 2023. It basically always was a sell the news event, and then we recovered quite fast going into September. So that's my copium conversation for this for this roundtable conversation today. That we actually can recover strongly because the market makers usually use it for um, for a big move to either side to create the to fill the liquidity. So hopefully, if we reclaim 112k, I would say the bottom is in, and we can start trading again into the 120k region, and BTC will just be range bound. What I do see, and that I pointed out in the last few conversations here, is that Solana versus Ethereum is still on that higher time frame support level. over here. So I think once, let me make my screen bigger. Servant. Yeah, better. I think once BTC starts ranging above the previous all-time high at 112k, I think Solana is the one to keep an eye on as long as we hold this higher time frame support. I mean, we have been here stuck since the last like 14 days ago. I spoke about this, that we bottomed on the Solana ETH chart, and we basically have been consolidating here for 2 weeks now, since that roundtable conversation on the 12th of August. So once BTC finally chills and Ethereum already had its run to all-time high, I think Solana is the one to keep an eye on. I already said like the narrative is not there yet, but usually these charts tell the story already that we'll probably see a mean reversion for Solana soon to, let's say, 230, 240. So I'm really keeping an eye on this. We have a lot of work to do still, as we are not above the daily EMA 13 yet. Also on the 4 hour, I think we're not above the 4 hour EMA 13 yet. So it's still, we need to, the bulls still need to show up. And I think that's going to happen early September, because usually the flows are really toxic at the end of a month. And we have the monthly close coming up on this Sunday. So yeah, it's a bit sitting on my hands here. Let this just play out. I have some alts on my radar that are showing strength already. Like GTO, they have the staking ETF narrative going on from last week, which got dropped basically at the most bearish time period. So I think once it starts showing strength on Sol, GTO will be the strongest performer because they have the staking ETF coming up. Also, Hive has been quite strong on this dip. It's one of the few that's still above the 4 hour EMA 13. It's above the 50 level on the RSI, and people that know my system by now, these are the two metrics that I'm looking at combined with Fibonacci and the breakout on the of the trend line. So yeah, there are a few coins that are still worth keeping an eye on, but for now I just want to I have the reclaim for BTC of 112k, and that should be the first signal for bulls to step up, to me. Thanks
Nice,
for
yeah.
coming
And
to my
something you
TED
just
talk.
something you just mentioned there about sitting on your hands. It's a point that I'm really trying to hammer home at the moment. Something I mentioned in my channel last night is that part of being a good trader is knowing when you have a real executable edge and when you don't. And there's nothing wrong with looking at the current price action and saying, I don't really know what's happening here. Like, for
Yeah,
instance, I feel like I had a really strong read for most of July and most of August. However, the last 4 or 5 days, I don't really know what's going to happen. I don't really know. Like, as I said on my stream yesterday, I think at the moment, the charts are doing a bad job of telling us what the market appetite for risk is. I
yeah, I
think
love that one. Yeah,
yeah, it's like TA takes a back seat at certain points and the charts can only tell you so much. At the moment, it really does feel like the market is waiting for resolution of several important macro factors, resolution of several question marks about the market, and some of those we'll get into in the remainder of this discussion today. But there's nothing wrong. And this is, there's nearly 70 people listening to this chat. If the only thing you take away from today's conversation is that you don't always have to have a perfect read on the market, then I think it'll have been worth it. There's nothing wrong with looking at the charts, looking at the price action, and saying, I don't really know what's happening here. I'm going to sit on my hands until I do, right? Because when you have a good read on the markets, your execution will follow typically, right? It's not a one to one, but very hard to execute when you don't have a good read, right? And like likewise, when you have a bad read, your execution is not going to be on point. So nothing wrong with looking at the charts and saying, I don't have a read here, therefore I'm not going to execute. I'm going to sit on my hands until a clearer read presents itself. Victor.
exactly.
Yes, sir. Um, Alrighty. I'm gonna share my screen.
Pick.
I'm mostly gonna talk about my current bias
I can if
and
Vic doesn't step up, I can do some.
wait,
Oh, there he goes.
you you can't hear
Yes.
me?
Purdue, I think you have Victor muted or something. Victor is talking.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I'm gonna talk about my bias and how I build my bias and why I was bearish for 90% of the last 2 weeks and how that has helped me stay out of probably losing longs and also catch some nice shorts and why I'm still looking for shorts. So I'm not gonna go too way back, but I've talked about this so many times. One, two, three, four, five bearish fair value gaps held, four of which have been fully filled before creating the next low. The only time where I considered being bullish was after this bullish break of structure on Friday after the Jackson Hole Symposium and after Powell's speech. But then, as we know, of course, this bullish fair value gap failed. And if you read my post yesterday in my channel, I said that simply a break of structure is not enough for me to fully turn bullish. I need to see a bullish POI hold. So because of this, this H4 fair value gap didn't hold. I was just weakly bullish. But then again, we made a new low and the bearish H4 structure continued. We didn't even get a retest of this fair value gap or this fair value gap yet. Um, so yeah, that's why I am still bearish, because the structure is bearish, because bullish POIs like this H4 fair value gap have not been respected, and because bearish fair value gaps like these four and potentially like this one right here are respected. So this is why for me there is no reason right now to be bullish. I am not a perma bear, I'm not a perma bull, I'm just adapting to what I see. So right now my bias is the following. I am currently in a short, but it was a low risk short that I took on stream. Something like this, I think. Betting on the fact that the H4 fair value gap will continue to act as a resistance just like the previous H4 fair value gaps did. So this is why I'm short here, but the actual best short will be if we fail this daily low, and it will be something like this. I don't know the target just yet, but I know then we're gonna look for lower prices. Also, this is a very important level to hold because we have this daily fair value gap that has been held for now somewhat, and that's why we are kind of in an important level. Like if we can hold this daily fair value gap, I'm okay with that. But until we see some clear bullishness, I'm a bear. If we close the daily candle below the current daily low, then we had failed this daily fair value gap. So that's when my full bearish bias comes in. So when do we flip bullish? Well, the first sign technically to flip bullish would be to break the H1 structure right here. But again, until we see more, simply a break of structure is not enough to flip bullish. So what I want to see is us inverse this bearish H1 fair value gap. Then I can be totally bullish on H1. And then on H4, if we break the H4 structure, then I'll be cautiously bullish on H4. And if we also invert this H4 fair value gap, then I will be fully bullish on H4. So it's a step-by-step ladder that we're looking at different levels to change our bias, and until that happens, we are still bearish. We are still looking for shorts, but like I said, the big shorts will come in after we lose the daily low if that happens. Also want to draw your attention to the weekly chart of BTC because I think it's very important to look at it right now. Um, because this is something that I've talked about in May. This is something that Follis has talked about, TraderMain has talked about. Every single time we printed this double top with an SFP from an all-time high, we saw a big pullback. Of course, the sample size is not big. It's 3 because it has happened right here. We got the pullback here. We got the pullback. Then here, and we got the pullback. And something pretty similar is happening right now. So speaking from this small sample size, but yeah, I can see us having a pullback to like the 90s and 80s. But the level to watch will be this level, because if we close this weekly candle below this, we will have a weekly break of structure, and that happens not many times in a bull market. So definitely keep an eye on this level by the end of the week. Now, Perdue has asked me to speak about Sol. On Sol, what I see is that This is a range that we've been in since March 2024, and right now we are retesting range highs, trying to go above them, but every single time we make a new high is just an SFP of the previous one, which isn't really that strong. At the same time, we have inverted the daily fair value gap, which is bearish. Now we are retesting it. So here I see two possibilities. If we reject this and go back inside the value area, because this is the value area high, then I'll be totally bearish on Sol, and I will swing short it towards range lows or value area low. If we don't reject from here and instead we go something like this, then I'll have no bias and thus no action. And ETH is the only one that's still giving me hope for something bullish, because as you can see, we fully fill the daily fair value gap and we're kind of reacting pretty nicely from it. Although the all-time high was not really convincing, and I know we'll talk about ETH a little bit more later about how unconvincing this all-time high was. I still think it's looking decent. I will only flip bearish on ETH if we break the daily structure, which is losing $4,050. So yeah, that's my overall read on the market. Currently bearish. I've mapped out the levels where I will flip bullish on different time frames. Also told you what I will do if we lose today's low, and also draw your attention towards the weekly structure, which I think is also important to take a look at. But my last point is that when the structure is bearish, bullish POIs only tend to make a lower low. So, and then give a bounce, which creates a lower high, and then we make another lower low, and so on. So definitely longing every bullish level, expecting it to be the bottom before the all-time high is a bad strategy, in my opinion. So yeah, keep your portfolio safe and do not try to long every bounce. It's better to be flat or short than long every bullish POI. Sorry that I scared some of you, and like Foley said, I think 10 people left when I started saying that I'm bearish, but this is my job to be here and tell you what my bias is, so that maybe you agree with it, maybe you disagree, but at least if we continue dumping, I'll be at peace with myself, because at least I told you that I'm bearish. So yeah, thank you, lads.
That's all good. That's all good. Strong opinions, loosely held, right? Isn't that it? So I
Yeah.
think that's always something I try and remember, even when you have a strong bearish bias or a strong bullish bias. You always need to be ready to change that bias based on the presentation of new information. And I think that's the mark of
Yeah.
a good trader, is being flexible. Guys on CT get a lot of flack for flip flopping. Oh, you're posting a bullish chart? Weren't you bearish last week? It's like, yes, bro. I was bearish last week because everything was different last week. It was 7 days of price action. So a lot can change in that time. Um, why is the
Yeah, just
volume
my last
louder?
point about this. The biggest, because we're always learning and we're always growing. And I think at the beginning of the year, my biggest fault and my biggest disadvantage was not adapting fast enough to the market changes. And over this year, I've learned how to do that better. And I think that's my biggest edge in the current market, like knowing when to flip bias and when to marry the bias.
Very good. Excellent stuff. Monk, how have you been navigating the last few days of crazy price action?
Hello, everyone. And just
Wow.
before to start, I'm like totally agree with Victorious. It's very important to be able to change UBS depending of the situation. And I remember last week we were talking about the market and the price action, and with war what's happened with Powell and the big market said it changed very quickly. So I think it's something that I learned in the past year, that it's very important to be able to change your strategy. Is something happening in the 24 hours or even more. So I will just add a +1 because I'm totally agree with that. And let's share my screen. For people that were with me on the market brief, I will repeat myself because the New York session was boring. But compare with what I said at the last roundtable, I was initially hoping for negative September, but since August already delivered a negative month, maybe the rumor says the new setup carry less weight now, and we will see how August will close and how the weekly close also. It's an important week for BTC, as you can see on my chart. Um, but there is not too much to say on macro headlines. only the PCE Friday, the core PCE important data from Jerome Powell, and whatever. The focus is pretty on the price action. We have BTC that is on an important point on a big FBG. So I was expecting BTC to have a big bounce from here to liquidate all the long with high leverage to hit the stop loss and then to reclaim this level that very important for keep the bull market alive. But we are still here, and it's quite surprising to to have this New York session very boring, even if the Ghost month is live. I don't understand why the market is not moving so much, but it's part of the game. Is sometime in August, in summertime, we have low liquidity and we have less investors. But whatever, this zone is very critical in my view. If BTC managed to bounce and reclaim 111 500, sorry, then continuation is possible. If not, so we will open a new target. We will open the path back to this level, the July low, near 105K, and that's why I have two recommendations. This one is high risk, low capital. I expect like a very the price to go on this area, but to have a reclaim and go back, and then we are targeting very high. So it's again high risk, low capital, and this one will be my big swing. I think of September. I will wait BTC to come here. To come little bit in fear for all investor and also for traders. So for here we have a lot of confluences. We have the low, we have the point of control, we have also OTE, and also the market maker are changing their strategy from 105K. So I think for me everything is linked at this point, but overall the momentum looks very weak on BTC. It was very fast, and I think if you are new on the market, happy crypto market because in 3 or 4 days you had all the circus that we can have. Powell said something, we had a great pump, and then the world just destroys the market very quickly, even if maybe it's other thing, but it's happened very quickly. So that's why we have something weak. BTC is weak, and overall the market Ethereum is stronger than BTC as we so during the past weeks, and I'm still waiting a new all-time high and Ethereum above 5K this year. We need maybe great news from macro, from Trump or Powell. We don't know, but what we know is news has an important impact since we are in this range and even here. So it's always very good to have your analysis on price action, but always be linked with what's happening. For example, last Friday, everyone was saying that it's a big day, and as we saw, it was a big day, and I think PCU Friday afternoon will be very important for all of us. So that's why it's important to have our analysis, this one and this one, to have you set up and focus on your plan. But finally, the bigger picture problem for Bitcoin remains the same. We have less participants because we have some fear. Even if we check already today, but we have some inflow on. We have still some inflow on ETF on Bitcoin and Ethereum, so that's great overall. For the moment, BTC is need to manage this fair value gap. I only show you the daily because for me it's maybe the most important. And Victor, you spared you for this to show low time frame, and I'm still focused on liquidity hunting. So for now, I will just show this from my view. On Ethereum is quite the same. We don't have the same setup, but I don't expect Ethereum to go so much lower. This one, it's again high risk, low capital in order to target higher. I think I will propose some trade here. If we break this level, it's for me one of the most important level for Ethereum, and Bull have to protect this level and had a great support. If not, I'm targeting this. It's been a long time that I show you this level 3K and 600, but for me, it's not only a big trade, a big swing trade. It's also, if we go there, I will add more Ethereum on my spot because if I consider August and September a negative month, I'm pretty sure, I'm sure in my analysis that October, November, and December will be great for crypto market and for the crypto overall. So from now, I will not talk about 3 or 4 months that will come. I will just be focused on the next week. So I'm focused on the daily view on Ethereum on this and also on value RLO. If this one didn't succeed, I think I will try here and also a sweep of this level. We don't have from this session. We don't have so much to say from New York session. Tomorrow I will explain my view again. But if you have any question, I can go over what I just showed you. But this is my quick view on BTC and Ethereum. Thanks, guys.
That's great, Monk. Thanks for that. Moving on to the next topic of conversation, and Monk just touched on it there, but Powell's speech on Friday felt like it was setting the stage or setting the forward path for rate cuts in September. We obviously saw the market pump, but then a complete retrace in the following days. I'm just wondering, Jedi, do you have any thoughts on the speech itself? And I guess the market reaction to it has been surprising for many, very telling of kind of what market participants are expecting going into the next few weeks. But particularly on the speech, do you have any thoughts on what Powell said and where you think what you think he's looking to do over the next few weeks?
Good afternoon. Is the volume okay for you guys, or do I need to turn it up?
Turn it up.
Is that good?
I think you're super
Is that
quiet.
better? How's
Even
that?
that's better, yeah, for sure.
Okay. Way to throw me in the deep end. Good afternoon from the southern tip of the African continent, and thank you for having me on this very illustrious and jam-packed roundtable. I think the biggest takeaway for me was, I think almost like this unexpected pivot around what was assumed was going to be the tone of his conversation. So everyone assumed it was going to be hawkish. Everyone assumed that he wasn't actually going to consider a rate cut, and he did the exact opposite. And in many ways, that was based on the price action that we're seeing, and just wanted to reflect on what it is that you said earlier on, Folus, is that you said the market right now is unsure. The price action is really a situation where you just got to sit on your hands. And I think the reason why is because that confusion is still in the mix. I think it's in the air. In terms of what it is that he said, we've got, I think it's still at 81%, got an 81% chance of a rate cut coming up. And I almost feel like he's looking towards a legacy kind of stance around this. I think he wants to step outside of this job, the good guy. I don't think he wants to decimate the markets, even though he has been pretty inconsiderate around that, you could argue. I think he's changed his tone. I don't know if the CIA got to him or anything. That's a joke, by the way, but it's a definite change in what it is that he was talking about and the way that he was viewing things, the employment numbers, the PPI. Obviously, the week before really did put us in a shit position, and then obviously I think Victor is right in terms of kind of like this bearish outlook. But I think what's going on right now is that we are seeing a reactionary situation around this conversation because the market almost didn't expect it. Dude, the market was dumping before. It was unhappy. The only thing that actually showed any strength was ETH. And I think we're still in that kind of like space where short term it is bearish, short term there is uncertainty. And I'd like to ask the question right back at you. Is there a chance that we don't see a ghost month like we have in the previous years? I don't think this trader Honey has actually done anyone any favors in the market right now. I think she's in many ways added to kind of like a legacy of bad Septembers, and I think it's just kind of gotten a little bit out of hand. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see the opposite of what it is that everyone is expecting in September, much the same as we're seeing the opposite of what it is that we expected from Powell. Don't know if that answers your question fully.
No, it does for sure, and it's interesting. I was just thinking the same thing. How often do we see these consensus opinions? And I use that word very loosely, but feels like almost everyone is everyone on social media, I should say. And I know our corner of CT is very small, so I won't read too much into that. But people do seem to be preparing for this, September bearishness, September downside, followed by upside and potentially alt season into the remainder of the year, Q4. And I suppose that brings us on to kind of what was originally going to be the last topic of conversation of today's discussion, but we can move it up now, which is September seasonality, and as you touched on there, ghost month. I mean, there is no statistics don't lie, right, Jedi? And I guess like it's just looking back at the historical performance of U.S. equities. The S&P has, I think it's like an average negative return in September going back like 80 years or something, right back to the end of World War II. It's like an average return of like minus 0.5 or minus 0.6%. So that is definitely a factor, I think, and there are logical reasons for that. Someone explained it to me that it's guys coming back, TradFi guys coming back to the desk after maybe being away for the summer or maybe not making any important decisions during the summer, and then they come back to the desk and they start reallocating risk, maybe mitigating risk, maybe taking profits on long-term positions, setting up for the tax year. I don't know, there are tax implications to getting stuff ready in September in the US, I believe. So stuff like that definitely does happen every year, and I think that feeds into this ghost month September seasonality narrative. And the funny thing about it, and this is something we've spoken about before, irrespective of whether or not it actually happens, the fact that people are talking about it means that it is something that people are going to be accounting for, right? So yeah, it's definitely something that's on a lot of people's minds, and a lot of people are talking about it. Do you have any thoughts on September seasonality itself, or maybe as a separate topic to Ghost Month? I know they're very closely linked.
So, I mean, I would like to just touch on what I think is more important right now, as opposed to kind of like a legacy thing, but particularly around crypto, is that, and we've seen this before, we've seen crypto kind of like almost buck the trend. I don't think it's likely to happen. I'm not saying that, there's an 80% chance or a 45% chance. I don't know what that percent chance is. But I think what we really need to focus on is what is currently going on in the market right now from a crypto perspective. And I'd like to just kind of give you my bullish perspective around this. And it comes down to news that came out an hour ago. Pantera Capital looking to deploy $1.25 billion into a Solana treasury company. Guys, what the actual? We're looking at another 1.25 billion coming into Solana. Right. Let's look at what Tom Lee's doing. He's got a whole lot of money that he's still willing to deploy. I think it's $2 or $3 billion that is sitting on the sidelines, and he's going to go and raise a whole lot more. I think we need to be very considerate around who this individual is. First of all, he is a Korean gentleman. He has an appetite to spend money, right? We've seen the bullishness that Korean individuals come into this market and they access funds, and this guy is doing it. He's already got access to $30 billion, and he's going to deploy that capital. That's the second thing. Then we've got what is kind of like happening with Trump, and what are they doing from a stablecoin perspective and the World Liberty Fund and all those movements that are happening within that. I mean, there's a whole lot of players that I've spoken about in my channel. So essentially what we've got is we've got a perfect storm. We've got Ethereum right now that's actually saying, you know what, I don't actually give a fuck what Bitcoin is doing. I'm going to do my own thing because we've got all these guys with their big bags coming in. And then on the other side of it, we've got all these traditional market watchers who are saying, no, I'm going to de-risk and I'm going to get better deals in September. And I think that's great. So the way that I'm looking at this thing is that I don't need to sit and watch these daily movements. I'll let the professionals in this very, very capable community take care of that kind of stuff. I'm not very good at that. So what I'm doing is that I'm going to DCA into positions that I think will do really well. Maybe I'll take up 10 positions. All I need is for 3 or 4 of those to come home and I'll do really well. In fact, I'm willing to bet that I'll outperform most of the guys that are doing the intraday and the scalping kind of stuff. So that's my strategy going into September. And I don't care whether September does well or not, but I am aware that there is momentum in this market right now that seems to indicate that we are going to have some kind of a blow off top if we're going to stick to a traditional market cycle structure, which everyone is assuming is going to happen. But even if that doesn't happen, I'm also looking at the possibility of having an extended cycle into early 2026. I'm not going to go big on that bet, but I'm not going to land up going and selling everything in November like I would normally have or at the end of October. The way that I'm treating that is that I'll sell. It's kind of like the general rule: sell 30% too early, sell 30% at exactly the right time, and sell the other 30% a little bit late. So I'm going to play it by ear, but I think that we stand a very good chance, a lot better chance than in the past, of seeing a September that might actually have a lot more momentum with a select few coins doing really well. I mean, 2017 Bitcoin topped and did and traded like 40% lower than Ethereum did when it did 100% increase. 2021 BTC topped and then dropped 27% and ETH rallied 83%. 2025 Bitcoin is doing exactly the same thing. It's dropping and ETH is pumping right now, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see ETH do like an 80 to 120% from this point onwards. So in summary, I'd like to stick to spot. I'd like to pick my winners, and I'll DCA in, and I'll be patient.
Yeah, you just touched on ETH there. We are going to get to ETH in 5 or 6 minutes. Something you spoke about there that I just want to touch on briefly, the blow off top. And I know a lot of guys have been, applying the 2021 fractal, or saying that, we one final run and then we're going to nuke back to whatever it is, 60, 70K. If there is a blow off top, what form do you think it comes in, with specific reference to Bitcoin? Because I've seen ridiculous targets, I've seen more reasonable targets. Personally, I think that something more along the lines of, if we do get some kind of blow off top, something more along the lines of like 130, 140, 150K, I could see that. But I think there are lots of guys with targets that are in the 200s. 250K seems to be a very popular target, maybe because of Kobe and his road to 250K. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
So I think what's really interesting about this question is, are we going to have, so I'd like to ask you the question, are we going to have a blow off top, or will we see kind of like a peak like we normally would, with kind of like a slight decline and maybe flattening out, and then almost seeing a repeat of what we saw with gold and the structure of gold from a charting perspective when that ETF was released, or launched rather. So I'm starting to think that maybe we are maturing in this market, and maybe we will see a trajectory that will follow a true ETF trajectory around traditional finance, where Bitcoin just essentially keeps on going up. I mean, there's guys, Alex Kruger, very good commentator on Twitter, who, I mean, I interviewed him a year and a half, 2 years ago, and he said to me, one of the first things he said to me, dude, we are entering into a Bitcoin super cycle. And I mean, I know that has derogatory terms and it brings up a whole lot of like dark spaces in people's minds, but a super cycle means that you essentially just gradually go up. So I don't necessarily think we will see a blow off top like we've traditionally seen. We didn't really see a blow off top in the traditional sense of what we saw in 2017, 2018 with Bitcoin in 2021. It was more kind of like we did a double top and then it just went straight back down again. I don't think we see more than 20% corrections in Bitcoin going forward. I think we've seen that already this cycle, and I think it's just going to keep doing that. And I think the question is, will we arrive at $1 million, and how long is it going to take?
That's fascinating. So you think that, and I just want to pull on that thread a little bit when you said that you don't think we're going to see any bigger than, did you say a minus 20% drawdown on Bitcoin going forward?
Yes.
So, I mean,
20,
that's
maybe max 25. Yeah.
right. Okay. So that's fascinating to me. I mean, even just looking at the charts now, like a 20% pullback, 25% pullback would put us into the 90Ks. And you're saying that, basically no lower. That's really interesting to me. Like, obviously, I think cycles as we know them, like the traditional four-year cycle. And I also want to qualify that by saying that, like, our sample size for these is like 2, right? We had 2
Yeah.
proper cycles, 2017, 2021. When people talk about the classical four-year cycle model, like, they're really not drawing on a very large data set. So, with that caveat out of the way, I do think that things are very different now to the way they were in 2021 and 2017 because of institutional involvement, because of treasury companies, because of Sailor, right? Because of the market maturing, because of a differing level of retail involvement, because of ticker dilution, because of capital dilution, right? Because of mindshare dilution. There's a lot of things that are very, very different this cycle and might lend credence to the idea that the the traditional quote unquote four-year cycle is done. But that's a fascinating idea to think about, Jay. I'm gonna.
Dude,
Oh, sorry, go on.
you should go and look at the gold ETF chart, just out of interest. I don't know if you can bring it up, but it's actually really interesting that we're almost following the exact same line that the gold ETF did at this point in time. The last time I checked, which was about 3 or 4 months ago, it was pretty much on point. And it really doesn't it wouldn't surprise me, And then the other thing is that it wouldn't also surprise me that we would surpass the market cap of gold, because we are kind of like just look at this thing like from a very simple thing. Everything that we've done as a society and as a species in the digital context always kind of like 10x's, 100x's. I mean, look at like publications, like printed media. When we went to digital at 1000x, and I think gold is going to land up doing the same. I mean, Bitcoin's going to do the same thing, especially for a generation that actually doesn't want to look at gold as this object that I can move around. Where can I put value as kind of like the next generation, my kids, your kids? And I think the digital context of value will land up 10, 20, 100xing. And I think 18 trillion, 18, it is 18 trillion, right? For gold, 18 to 20 trillion. I think that's quite a low number. And I mean, I think these guys that have come up with all these ridiculous numbers, I mean, I don't want to dial too much into that, but I think the digital store of value is going to be the basis with which I think we need to start looking at Bitcoin. And I think like $1 million and those kind of prices aren't really far off, but it might take us 10 years to get there. It might take us 15 years. It might take us 5. I don't know. But I don't see us doing what we did in the past. I see us definitely going on a gradual trajectory upwards. Obviously with bear cycles in between, but I don't think we're going to have these ridiculous pullbacks like we did in the past. I mean, we had 80% pullbacks in the past. I don't think we see that again.
That's fascinating. Thanks for that, Jedi. And you did touch on Ethereum there briefly, and I wanna get into Ethereum for the last 10 minutes of this conversation, the last 10, 15 minutes. We obviously saw ETH putting in a new all-time high since our last roundtable discussion, but the price action was extremely unconvincing, in my opinion. We had daily SFP. The daily failed to close a single candle over the previous all-time high, which was around 4,870. And prices pulled back. I think from top to bottom, we had about a 12% pullback, bouncing slightly now though, and I will say that it doesn't look too bad. Most high time frames are still intact, a very strong bullish uptrend. But yeah, maybe I don't know. Are these worrying signs, or is this just par for the course, Purdue?
Oh, hi there. Yeah, the all-time high sweep was quite sus, to say the least. I still think that we're in an uptrend on Ethereum, both on the weekly. Let me grab a clean chart for Ethereum. Both on the weekly and the monthly time frame. Basically, what you want to see over here is that we just hold this uptrend. So like you always do is like this, this, and this is where you want to see us hold, basically with your invalidation below this impulse candle. So let's say 4200 is now our line in the sand for the bulls. But as you can see here, we're pushing into that 4-hour EMA 13. So I'm not really bullish yet, but if we flip that point of breakdown back into support here and in confluence with the 4-hour EMA 13 break, also what you can see here is the RSI 50. It's almost coming into that level. So if we really see that momentum going, we want to see basically the daily close above the 4-hour EMA 13 in line with the 4-hour RSI 50 flipped. That would also align well with the point of breakdown. So that would basically mean that we erased all the bloody price action that started last Monday, so since yesterday. So if we start consolidating above here, above let's say 4600, I think we can finally trade back to the highs again, because this usually to me is way too obvious. I mean, yes, this is a very bearish candle. We swept the all-time high, created the SFP, but it looks to me, it looks too obvious. Just like the when we had that earlier on BTC. I don't know when it was, but then we also created like that really ugly 4-hour candle. And then within the next 3 or 4 days, we erased that whole bearish price action back to the upside. So from a higher time frame perspective and not knowing that everybody got liquidated in between, I think this is still a perfectly bullish structure to say the least. And if we start closing back above that 4-hour EMA 13, I think that would be the first sign that bulls are gonna step on the gas again, in confluence with BTC, hopefully trading back above 111, 112. But for now, yeah, I would mainly focus on Ethereum and Solana. That brings me to Solana over here. I think this is also still a perfectly bullish structure. I mean, as you can see here, we created all these higher highs from here. Over here, swept, swept, swept. So if we still, it's kind of the same impulse candle we had on Ethereum. You don't want to see us trade back into 183. That would mean that we reverse the whole move. And that to me is really bearish. Now we just filled this FEG here partially. And usually when we not fill the whole move, like if we don't trade into here, the 180, 183 level, that still means to me that we have to maintain our bullish bias. But same with Ethereum. Bulls gotta step it up. We have to reclaim the 4-hour EMA 13. We already reclaimed the yearly open here, which is our line in the sand for me at the moment. And now we have to play it level by level. So I actually want to take a long on this later today, because I think as long as we hold the 618 FIB in line with the yearly open, I think this can trade back to at least 201. I mean, we're not reaching for the stars and we don't want to hit home runs, but I think for scalping, I think it's starting to look okay-ish. It's starting to look okay-ish.
That's awesome. Thanks, Purdue. Monk, do you have anything to add? I know you covered Ethereum already.
I don't have so much to say about Ethereum. Just what I said. I'm looking for 2 trades. The first one is around 4K and 200, and the other one is 3K and 600. And nothing crazy to say about it. The only thing is we have to maintain the 4K crucial point for me. The bull have to support this level. And about the derivative or from the market maker, we don't have so much change for the moment. Market maker are doing much more effort on Ethereum than Bitcoin. And sometimes there are more short gamma than Bitcoin or even long gamma. But whatever, it shows that everything happened on Ethereum. And the only thing that I want to add is also about the open interest. We can think that with all what's happened, traders are less present on the market, but overall we have more open interest this week than the last week. So it shows that people are very interested to trade BTC, to trade all the market, and even to go higher on Ethereum. It's also what we can see on option. We have so much options are targeting Ethereum above 5K. So overall, I think this week we will have the opportunity to target the new high on Ethereum, and if it's not here, we will have it in a couple of weeks. So I'm still thinking that Ethereum is still stronger than BTC. It will offer us a big green candle as we saw during Pride June also. So I will be focused and monitor on it. So nothing too long to add. That's my view.
Question for you here, Monk. Someone wants to know whether you think rate cuts will be bearish or bullish. I
I
suppose.
think it's
Sorry,
yeah.
go
Sorry,
on.
go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah, I was just going to say. I suppose time frame is probably relevant to that question. But yeah, curious to know your thoughts.
Yeah, sure. I think it's rate cut. It's always bullish because it's globally bullish for the markets. It's good for the bank. It's good for investors. The money is cheaper. But overall, I think that it's not the only thing that is important. As we saw, we had a great candle on the power declaration. But what will be the surprise on the middle of September? What I learned during the past year is when everyone is waiting for one news, is not happening like everyone wanted. So I prefer to edge myself. I prefer to cut some TP before this great event. We can have a big candle on it, but we can also go and retrace all the movement. So what I can recommend you is when everyone is expecting one event is not like a good plan to targeting the same thing at everyone. But for me, the next big event is what's gonna say Jerome Powell during his speech, and also do what will be the strategy of the Fed in 2060, 26, sorry, with some quantitative easing. What will be the strategy of central bank also? But yeah, overall, if I have to recap, rate cut is always bullish, but the speech of Powell will be even more important because everyone is targeting a rate cut. I don't know your opinion, guys, but I think it's a great question on it.
It is a great question. I'm gonna flip over to Jedi. Jedi, do you have any thoughts on that?
It's definitely bullish, and if there's anyone who's going to give you the best answer, it's definitely Monk on this one. I think you've essentially got. I mean, it all comes down to the flow of capital, right? If there's more capital available that's being freed up around less interest rates, it's going to be deployed into risk assets. So I don't see how it could be bearish. A lot of people have said that it might be bearish, but I just think people are overthinking it. It's just the standard. Rate cuts always have been bullish. I don't see why they shouldn't be bullish this time around.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with that. I suppose it depends on the quantity of cut. I know everyone's talking about a 25 bips cut. That's very different thing to some people talking about a theoretical future where Jerome Powell either steps down or somehow is forced out, and maybe some kind of Trump puppet or Trump appointed successor does something crazy. Like we all know that Trump was talking about a full 3-point rate cut at some point in the last month or two, which would be like 300 bips. It would be the biggest rate cut in the history of rate cuts by a factor of 3x. And for context, the last biggest rate cut, which was 100 basis points, uh, was into the COVID economy that was dying, and all the growth indicators had already rolled over in a huge way. This would be going into an economy that's arguably peaking out, or at the apex of in terms of several growth indicators, even if it is starting to downturn slightly in the last 2 weeks. So there are very different questions there sometimes when people are asking whether rate cuts would be bullish or bearish. But we're coming to the end of the conversation. So, Jedi, just before we drop off, I want to get your thoughts on Ethereum. Obviously, I've asked Purdue and Monk. We ran the high a couple of days ago. We put in a new all-time high, but the price action has been a little bit unconvincing since then. I'm just curious, do you have any thoughts on Ethereum?
So I agree with the guys. I think that price action was very sus, but I think it was off the back of Tommy Lee. I think there's a lot of people who are wanting to exit. There's been people that have been in those positions since 2021, and I think that that's what we're seeing at the moment is that we need to get rid of those sellers. And I think when we did hit all-time high, I think a lot of those sellers were like, "I'm out of here. I'm done." I think if you look at what ETH has gone through over the last 2 years, 2.5 years, it's just been FUD, man. I mean, it was like, I held on to ETH for forever until I basically pivoted to Solana. I know probably most of the people in kind of like my cohort of traders and friends that were in a very similar position. So I think we saw, or what we're seeing right now is that we're seeing people that are tired. They are finally seeing profit and they're wanting to get out. I think we're going to see quite a bit of the sus price action going forward, but just kind of like medium to long term, ETH has got to lead the charge. If we want to see some kind of an altcoin market where things do go a little bit crazy, we want to see ETH doing this kind of stuff. We want to see ETH beating Bitcoin at the posts. We want to see people losing their minds over Ethereum, and I'm counting on that happening. If that isn't the case, then I'm going to have to stick around for another cycle, and you guys are going to have to put up with my bullishness for another 4 years. Sorry for you, but let's see what happens. I am ultimately bullish ETH, but I'm bullish ETH because we need to see the continuation in the market. Otherwise, I think we're dead in the water and we're going to see a little bit of an anticlimax if we don't.
That's great. Thanks very much for that. So we've just come on to 2 minutes past the hour. We're going to call it there. I want to say a massive, massive thank you in the first instance to Purdue, Monk, Jedi, and Victor, who had to leave a little bit early for speaking to us today. Today we covered the last few days of price action in the markets. Obviously, we had Powell's speech on Friday. And a full retrace and new monthly lows in the days following. We spoke about rate cuts in September. We spoke about Ghost Month. We spoke about September seasonality. And finally, we spoke about Ethereum and whether or not we believe that it will trade at higher prices into the remainder of the year. Will GCR's prediction come through? Will 10K be hit or not? All very interesting topics of conversation, and I want to say a massive, massive thank you to you guys for joining and for giving us your time. We will be back next week with another Chroma team roundtable. As always, these are weekly occurrences. Thank you very much for joining for this one. The recording for today's video will be posted in the videos channel later today. Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks, guys.